ASU football spring game is approaching this Saturday, so we're chatting with Richie from Locked On Sun Devils to break down how spring ball has been for the Sun Devils on today's episode of Locked On Pac-12 podcast.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Pac-12 podcast. I'm your host, Cindy Robinson. Today's episode is actually brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines. For BetOnline is where the game starts. Thank you so much for making Locked On Pac-12 podcast your first listen every day for free and available on all platforms. Joining me today is Richie Bradshaw from Locked On Sun Devils. Richie, your Sun Devils, we got a lot to talk about here. I feel like we haven't deep dived into football really since the season ended for this. Like, we talked a little bit about Jaden DeLaura and all of that, but that had nothing to do with Sun Devils. We talked to Daniel, heading to LSU and like what that meant for the Sun Devils. I'm going to talk to you about how spring has been for ASU, and yeah, we're going to break it down. First, starting with the offense. My first thing I want to point out is ASU has lost a lot along the whole depth chart, I would say, when it comes to starters of that veteran presence. Yeah, they're lacking in that area. This is kind of a refresher starting point for the Sun Devils. But when it comes to that offense specifically, they're working with a new quarterback starting situation. Technically, there's a veteran running back there, but they lost some major attributes in position, and then obviously same with the right receiver position. So my question is to you: what do Sun Devil fans have to look forward to with this offense as spring ball is coming to an end and the spring game approaches?
They get to look forward to the unknown because there's not a lot that we know for sure right now. We don't know who the quarterback is. We don't know which wide receivers are going to find a way to step up. We don't know how involved the tight end is going to be. We don't know how quickly the offensive line is going to mesh after losing some very important players. And we don't know who's going to stand out in the running back room. But the one thing that I would tell ASU fans feel confident in is the aforementioned running back room. So it sounds like incoming transfer from Wyoming's Xavier Valade has had a very strong spring practice so far. And it seems like he's starting to stand out. People are making the comparisons to Rachaad White, which, of course, take those with a grain of salt because you got the recency bias in there. But you like that he does a little bit of everything for your offense. And then you have Daniel Legata, who I am a very, very big fan of and would like to see him get involved quite a bit in the offense. And then incoming freshman Tevin White rounds out what could be a very good three-headed monster in the backfield for the offense. But outside of that, we don't know how the quarterback play is going to shape up. And we don't know if any of the receivers are ready to take that next step as a de facto go-to guy.
Okay, that's fair. When it comes to that quarterback position, the two quarterbacks that it seems like the battle is between is Paul Tyson and Trenton Bourguet. I hope I said his name right. Yes. They're looking like the heavy favorites. Right now, it seems as like they're taking it as we're pushing each other in practice and the best man will win. From what you may have heard or seen, whatever the case may be, in your opinion, what are your thoughts about those two and what can you tell Sun Devil fans about them in that position? And if they're going to be, I won't even say like as good as Jaden, but are they, worth that starting position?
They're just so different from what Jaden is, where Bourguet has some athleticism in terms of being like a mobile quarterback. Neither of them are this dynamic dual threat that Jaden was, especially in Paul Tyson's case, who is truly a stand in the pocket kind of passer. So they're going to be very different, which is going to lead to a very different looking offense. As far as what to look forward to, it's got to be the spring game on Saturday to figure out who really stands out the most in a basic scrimmage game. Is it going to be Paul Tyson with his big arm and his ability to pick apart a defense, or is it going to be Bourguet's ability to show off a little more athleticism and run an offense very similar to what ASU has been running in previous years? So trying to figure out how the snaps are going to be distributed is going to be very, very crucial for the ASU quarterback situation. I have a feeling that whoever stands out the most between those two will end up being the starter, at least heading into the beginning of the season. I feel like it's got to be between those two. If it's anybody else, I feel like it'd be a complete surprise and blindside everybody.
Well, hopefully we get a little more answers after the spring game and going into summer, have a little better idea of who will be in that position and who, like the main attraction when it comes to the running back room and wide receivers. I know they're relying heavily on those transfer veterans to, step up and be the veterans on this team, even though they're new on the team. Coming up next, Richie and I will discuss defense and what's happening on that side. Again, new players, new schemes, all the good stuff. We'll dive into that coming up next. Next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 because it's good for your gut health, but also good for giving you energy and your immune system. Now, I'm trying to get back into working out regularly and really just caring about my health as I get older. I know I'm aging gracefully, but I want to make sure that I'm aging gracefully inside and out. Great stuff about AG1 is one scoop, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, and tons of people take some kind of multivitamin. And it's important to choose one with high-quality ingredients that your body will actually absorb. AG1 is a small micro habit with big benefits. It's one thing you can do every single day to take great care of yourself. It literally costs you less than $3 a day, and you're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than, say, like that cold brew habit or, you're snacking if you're like me. Athletic created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover. It cost him $100 a day, so he created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was to create a nutrition routine on your own. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews, so if you don't trust my word, go ahead. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/college to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Shout out to you listeners for making Locked On Pac-12 podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, so make sure you check us out. I probably cut out there, so hopefully you heard all of that. Yeah. Richie, when we just talked about the offense, when it comes to Sun Devils, we have to talk about the defense. Again, ASU is one of those teams experiencing a full-on gut check with how the teams are kind of losing players. And honestly, we'll get into in the next segment how they're losing coaches as well, or how they lost coaches as well. But sticking with the theme right now, let's talk about this defense. Last season, there were a lot of people to talk about on the defense, right? The defense was a shining spot for ASU. Part of the reason why they won some of those games that, kind of took it down to the wire when offense wasn't showing up, defense definitely did. And so now when it comes to this defense, putting in a new scheme, starting fresh, what are your thoughts going into this spring game?
My thoughts are I love the front seven. The back end is very much an unknown, similar to just about everything else on offense. The front seven is returning both Merlin Robertson and Kyle Soley, who were starters at the linebacker spot last year. Jermaine Lole is also returning from a season ending injury a year ago for that defensive line. And for the Pac 12 loyal and definitely Arizona State fans as well, he was being talked about highly in the NFL draft community. He's a very
Yes,
good,
also I was shocked when
yeah,
you said that. I was like, wait, huh?
he's back and he's going to anchor that defensive line and take over Tyler Johnson's spot that Johnson was able to step up into this past year. So he's really going to help develop the younger guys like Omar Norman Lott and BJ Green in order to take that next step in their development. So with Robertson, Soley, and Lole back, I do like that front seven for the Sun Devils. It's just the back end where you have so much mystery. The entire starting core is gone. No more is Chase Lucas, Jack Jones, Evan Fields, and DeAndre Pierce. You have Jordan Clark coming back, but you've got a lot of unknowns too. You've got the twins that are sitting back there. You've got Cory Bethley, who came in and transferred. And you like the upside of some of these guys, but there's a lot of unknown right now, and you're truly going to be one of those teams where you really hope that one part of the defense gets it done and makes life easier for the other, because otherwise you're going to get picked apart.
Yeah, so when it comes to rebuilding a team, right, there's upsides and downsides to it. You kind of have the autonomy to shape it how you want it to be, start fresh, bring in new things, right? But then you also are working with completely new people. Granted, you just mentioned a bunch of veterans that are there, right? But even still, they're learning new things with, how they're shaping a defense around. Like I said, the secondary was a big deal for ASU, and with the unknown situation, is it one of those you walk into it with optimism, or is it one of those you walk into it with more fear?
I feel like you have to go into it optimistically, because the guys that you do have back there do look like they could be more than capable guys. Between the twins and Keon and Kawan Markham, they both have shown the ability to have ball skills when it's up in the air. They both had an interception last year and very limited playing time. I personally am a very big believer in Jordan Clark, and I think that he could really take a step forward, maybe as a Jack Jones kind of guy on the outside who can go into the slot. And I am also, if you were to ask me the three Sun Devils I'm most excited for this year, Cory Bethley is one of those three. Incoming transfer from Hawaii, had 99 tackles last year. I want to say 7 career interceptions, a couple of sacks, and an overall playmaker in the secondary who ASU is going to love being able to flex around between boundary corner and slot safety. And I think they're going to be able to get really creative with his role. And I like the fit for him, because I feel like if there's one guy that you can probably rely on this year in that secondary, I feel like it's going to be Cory Bethley. I truly would be shocked if he doesn't end up being the best player from that secondary.
Okay. That's some optimism for you. I feel like it's night and day talking to Richie and Michael Luke. So, right, they're rival, they're covering rival podcasts, rival schools. And even with things looking up for the Wildcats, Michael Luke tends to, have this thought like, yeah, I'm still not getting too excited. I don't have any faith in them like that. Like, they're going to win more games, but not all the games. And then Richie's like, no, even through the struggles, we're still going to be good enough to compete. Like, I love the energy, because
6
that's
and
how
6.
I tend to look at things, but
6 and 6 and bowl eligible.
that's all that matters. Right? Like, let's just get there. Let's just get there, and it'll be a successful season. Again, I think there is some excitement to be seen in starting over. I just feel like it's a new era. You know what I mean? It may not be the comfort that you would have, when you have certain veterans coming back and knowing you're, supposed to be ranked a certain level or whatever the case may be. But I think when you don't have those high expectations, placed upon you, that's sometimes when you do better than expected. So super excited to see what these teams do. Coming up next, Richie and I will talk about the overall perspective of the Sun Devils and what you all can expect as Sun Devil fans. And then we're also going to get into these coaches situation because there's been a lot of changes going on there as well. So yeah, a lot to talk about still. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championships, podcasts and reviews for all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts. Make sure you guys check out betonline.net for all of your betting needs, especially as we get closer and closer to football season. I know Richie and I are talking about college football now, and it's still kind of early, but you can never be too early with football, right? But once football season gets going and as NBA playoffs roll around, betonline.net is where you'll want to be. I promise you. Okay, Richie. So one thing that I've noticed in a recent interview, as the days are dwindling down towards the spring game, that means the days are dwindling down, that the coaches have access to the players until late summer, right, when we get into training camp and all of that. And Chris Claiborne, the linebackers coach, gave a statement saying one of the things that he's pushing is pride and consistency to the players. Now, keeping with the theme of consistency, we've been talking about the changes that's been happening with Sun Devils, and one of those changes has been the coaching situation as well. They've lost 5 different coaches due to the sanction situations and whatever other reasons. I won't, put that on everybody. But either way, that was a big reason why they lost the coaches they did. And so moving forward, they're starting out of those areas too. For you as a fan, as an analyst, whatever, is this breathing new life into this team, starting with some new coaches? It may not be a new head coach or new linebackers coach, but, in all those different spots, is that breathing new life and energy into this team?
I think you're in a situation, Cindy, where you're going to need the guys to buy in if you want to even compete this year. And unfortunately, there's a lot of new moving pieces, not just on the roster, but like you mentioned, on the coaching staff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of change that's coming to this program, which is why I could very easily see the whole thing kind of flip on its back and just not pan out this year. But you're really hoping that the guys can look at the situation they're in and say, you know what, we're going to make something out of this. Like the world is falling on our shoulders, and we got to find a way to stand up and keep fighting, because with all the sanctions that are coming down and all the movement that's been going on and the lack of commitments that are coming into the program, there's a lot of players who we're going to be looking at to step up. And the first thing they need to do is look at that coaching staff and say, you know what, they're the leaders right now. We need to buy into what they're putting out, because if we don't, then Lord only knows how much success, quote unquote, success you're going to have without that buy-in factor.
Yeah, that's fair. I want to talk about having the pride part, right? On one end, I would say it's difficult knowing you have these situations, still waiting to hear the NCAA sanctions, all that stuff, to have pride in this team, right? But joining the team and deciding to move forward with the team, as an athlete, it is important for you to have pride, not only in your team, but in what you're doing, right? And so knowing that that's what's being preached to them, having pride in your craft, and having the depth, there with the team, it matters. Do you feel like, at the minimum, the messages that are being conveyed to the team are right and proper in the moment and, good for their momentum moving forward? It's still early. Obviously, there's still time to shape the team into what they want it to be. But, where we are in spring ball as of right now.
I think so. I think you're trying to get those guys to really, like I mentioned, you want them to buy in, but part of buying in is realizing that you got to have that faith in yourself, and you have to have, like you said, that pride in yourself that the coaching staff is trying to pound into their heads and into their chests and into their hearts, is to have that pride, wear it like a chip on their shoulder instead of a burden. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's the biggest thing right now, is if these guys can have pride in themselves and if they can buy into what's going on, they could turn out a successful year. They're not competing for the Pac-12 South. They're hoping to finish within the top 3, but with UCLA, Utah, and USC likely being the top 3 guys, you're going to be in a dogfight with U of A, who is going to take a step forward. And I still firmly believe that Colorado is in the cellar right now. So you're fighting for your pride in the Pac-12 South to prove that you're not the worst team down there. Because if you do finish last in the Pac-12 South, then my goodness, what does that say about your program moving forward? Because if that's the case, then truly the sky'd be falling at that point, because I don't see you rebounding at anytime soon, at least, if you do finish last in the South, let alone a conference.
Yeah. All right. Richie giving us the realism and optimism all at once. I'm here for it. It's not all, a negative view. But for you Sun Devil fans, if you are in the Tempe area, make sure you head on over to the spring game this Saturday, right? It's free admission. You can get a good view of yourself, what the Sun Devils are working with. So you don't have to necessarily take our word for it. You can see it with your own eyes and make your own judgments.
And then drop some there. So
okay, and then you might meet Richie in the stands. Go ahead and mix and mingle with Richie. But yeah, thank you so much, Richie, for joining us per usual, giving us insight on the Sun Devils. You guys make sure you check out Locked on Sun Devils Monday through Friday. Richie's providing you with everything you need to know about ASU sports. You can also catch him on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Same thing with the Locked on Pac-12 podcast. Like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all platforms. You can check us out on Twitter at LO_Pac12 and LO_Sun Devils, right? Got to make sure I get that right. And then at Richie Brads with the Z 36 and at _Cindy Robinson. Richie, any last thoughts before we say farewell to everybody?
Just you got to stay positive, Sun Devil fans, because it's going to be a very long season. At the end of the day, if you go 1-11, let that one win be against the team down south.
100%. Thanks for making Locked on Pac-12 podcast your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked on NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Other than that, continue to stay locked on Pac-12 on the Locked On Network.